Hello and welcome to the 16th episode of the Fireside Chat. Today's July 12th, and we will be talking about the Gridcoin roadmap if we get there, and you'll know what we're talking about in a second. The Fireside Chat is a get-together of Gridcoin participants and anyone from any community who wants to come in and talk about anything related to Gridcoin, the blockchain, technology, decentralization, cryptocurrencies, science, education, how everything works together, the future, how amazing everything is going to be, getting the blockchain to Mars. Anything really, just come on in here. We can talk about it. If you have a specific subject that you think will take a while to discuss, get it to one of the hosts here, and we will put it on the schedule and give it an entire episode on its own. And your hosts are myself, Jay Ringo, down below. Actually, you're down below because your name starts with a T. That's why you're always at the last. It's the Goblin Popper.
Hey.
And then in the corner, because of the chocolate, is I Like Chocolate.
Hey.
Although today I don't think he's eating chocolate, which is a little disappointing.
I need my greens, dude.
Chocolate comes in different colors. There's green M&Ms, just saying.
Boom. Cornered. So before we get into the topic of today, we go over the news. And there's a bit of news this week, so this will take a second. Grab yourself a seatbelt. I started saying that, and then I'm wondering where it's going, but that's what we're going to go with. We had a new State of the Network report come out on Monday. Those come out every other Monday. They alternate Mondays with the developer updates that are put together by Barton. The State of the Network reports are put together by myself and Parajan. He really does most of the work of stats collection and building, and then I put the post together. So huge shout out to him. As always, we've been doing this for a while now, but they cover what's going on in the community in terms of community endeavors a lot of time and what the conversations are in the different outlets. And then they have a lot of tables and just data about the Gridcoin network at large, our Boink team, the pool size, the blockchain, like block times and how everything's working in the background. So take a look at that. I will link it in the chat here, and it will also be in the description below. And there was also a update released for the GUI poll that is running right now. Max has been taking a lot of feedback about what the community thinks should go into the new design. Has been incorporating what he can into the design. So he came out with a couple new assets. There's a news page now. What else did he do? Well, just look at the post. I'll put it in the description below, and I'll link it in the chat here too. But he's continuing to take suggestions, and there are still a lot of suggestions coming in, and they're all really good suggestions, and he's pretty sure he's going to put in anything that makes sense with the current design. And if it doesn't really make sense, there's a whole conversation. It's on the GitHub thread, and we figure out a way to get the idea behind the suggestion into the wallet. And this poll is still running. It is running until August 1st. So if you have not voted yet, take a look at that. The link to the full proposal is in the client under the voting tab. And get your vote in by August 1st. Moving on, CM, Custom Miner, long-standing community member, has put together Boink team challenges. They're part of Boink specifically, not part of Gridcoin, but Gridcoin is a team on Boink, so we can make team challenges. And we've been doing this for a long time. It's usually run, I think it's always run by CM. He puts them together when he has the time. And they are just friendly competitions between Boink teams. So the challenges coming up are GPU Grid. I think that's underway right now. That one ends July 15th. Coming up after July 15th, so from the 15th to the 22nd is Milky Way at home. Then from the 22nd to the 29th is Number Fields at home. To participate, you just crunch those projects during that time period. And whoever gets the highest rack during that time wins the challenge. You don't always get something for winning. Usually you don't, but sometimes because we are Gridcoin and we have the rain feature, I would not be surprised if someone decided to rain over those projects during that, whoever crunched during that week. Just get a little extra Gridcoin out there. Because they're fun and they give us a little PR, gets the name out there. So good looks at CM. Thank you for putting these together as always. And the link will be in the description below and in the chat right now. All right, moving on more. We've got a message from StarTail. He runs gridcoinstats.eu and the Gridcoin Stats faucet, which is an amazing endeavor. He's always around taking suggestions and bug fixing and dealing with whatever comes up. So respect to him and thank you for that. As always, he knows we love him. But he says that the faucet has delayed payments. It's in manual payment mode. So I think this might not be true, but I think that means he goes through whenever there's a faucet request, he goes through and manually sends the coin to whoever requests it, which is a lot of work. So good looks there. That's tedious. So I think they're trying to fix that. And he says an update is coming with a few changes and enhancements. And StarTail is also a Steemit witness, a witness on the Steem blockchain. So if you don't know how that works, look it up. I'm not going to go into it now, but you can vote for them to become a block producer. If they get enough votes, they become a block producer, and it's a privilege and an honor, and you make a little money as a block producer. So the link to StarTail's post, their name on Steemit is SC Steemit, will be in the description below and in the chat right now. Oh, Barton says he can elaborate exactly what happened to cause the backlog. Go for it, dude.
Gridcoin stats, the faucet, it takes an input of your Gridcoin address, and it does some basic verification. Previously, the verification it did was whether the address started with S or R, which of course all Gridcoin addresses have to be valid. What it wasn't checking was some other conditions of our address system, mainly that it has to be base 58. So certain characters are not allowed, like lowercase l, uppercase I, uppercase O, or a 0, like things like that are not allowed in base 58, and that wasn't being checked. So what happened was someone entered an invalid address, or possibly several, I'm not entirely sure, and the system was unable to process the claims, which caused a massive backup. So that has been, well, it's being resolved in terms of new code to verify the inputted addresses. But as you said, in the meantime, they're being handled manually.
Do we know if this is intentional, a malicious attack, or anything like that, or just someone just kind of laughing and seeing what would happen?
I mean, I don't know if there's really any way to know, but in the future, it will definitely check against that. And, it's just something for maybe other faucets as well to be aware of. There are certain checks you have to make sure an address is valid.
Awesome, thanks. So the manual part does mean that they're going through and manually sending each request off, like clicking, maybe scripting it or something, right? They're doing a lot of work right now.
I don't know about that. I don't know exactly how StarTail's doing it, but it's definitely not fully automated.
Got 5 payments today.
You got 5? Is that illegal? I don't know. We're moving on.
Illegal! That's wrong. You shouldn't do that.
That's what illegal means, right? No, morals and law. Okay.
I definitely have the moral high ground here.
I had one more thing to bring up in the news. Oh, right. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about how to get Gridcoin in front of more Steem community members in general. Sorry, not Steem, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math people who aren't necessarily privy with the blockchain. And we had a really good conversation on that. I think it's 2 episodes ago. It's called Steem. God, wow. Gridcoin and the STEM community. That's what it's called. And from that, there was a point where someone brought up maybe we could get an advertisement in Science Magazine or Nature Magazine. And just the conversation kept going after the show. and the conversation is going on in the marketing channel on Slack, and it's progressing. Community member Anonymous has been taking the lead on this. He has reached out to both magazines actually, and we're not moving very quickly forward, but we have quotes, and we're thinking about what sort of ad we would want to design. So in particular, we are looking for designers and marketers and people who work in advertising right now to come help out. So the two things I want to communicate here, huge shout out to Anonymous for taking the lead on this. He's putting in a lot of work. So cheers to him. And if you want to participate in advertising or marketing, now is the time to reach out and get involved, because it looks like we're going to keep moving forward with this. There's a good group of people just continuously chatting about how to actually do this and what the best path would be. So if you need a Slack invite, reach out to basically anyone and we'll get you the invite to you. It's very open, just we require the invite to limit bot. And that is all the news I've got for today. Anyone else have anything or have any questions or what?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple blockchain related news stories, just about the current health of crypto and blockchain as a technology.
Go for it.
So just a couple big things. First of all, the Shanghai Stock Exchange is currently considering and evaluating the use of blockchain as a technology to help be more transparent with the security market. So buying and selling securities will now be is being evaluated whether or not how well it would work on the blockchain, and whether or not there would be a secure way to make it much more transparent as to what trades are happening and when. So that's pretty big. Also, this is kind of sad that this needs to happen, but it's also kind of funny. Australian banks are now banning the use of home equity loans for crypto trading purposes. So you cannot put your house down as collateral, effectively, to trade cryptocurrency. Which I've actually read enough news articles about people who did it, and the news articles are always about people who did it successfully, which is convincing a lot of people that this is definitely the way, because it's a surefire thing. So it's funny that, yes, they're actually now stopping people from doing that. I think the very, very last thing, though, is if anyone actually, and I read this on Reddit, actually, which is interesting. Apparently, for anyone out there who plays League of Legends, still plays it or used to, whatever, if you know what that is, it has a downloadable client, right, they use to connect to a server to play with other individuals. But no, it's a Reddit story, but it's actually now in some news articles I'm finding, and effectively it is one of the clients from the Philippines had some crypto jacking code in it. So as people were launching it and playing League of Legends, it was actually mining Bitcoin.
Oh so, yeah, that happened with ESEA a while back. Usually what happens is an employee puts this into an update, sneaks it in, and then it gets downloaded by, LOL is a huge community, ESEA is a huge community, and they mine crypto for this one employee. The employee gets caught, gets fired, but they made a bunch of crypto.
Yeah, so yeah, that kind of just happened. It was kind of actually confirmed. So yeah.
All right, cool. I mean, these all speak to just, especially the first one with Shanghai, getting, this is making quotes here, the 2018 is the year of the security token, where supposedly there's supposed to be ETFs coming up and security tokens, tokens that are securities. So you can do like a IPO with a token, and that would be an amazing tool of adoption for cryptocurrency and blockchain in general, because it's a fairly obvious use case, trading stocks with crypto. Yeah, so that's pretty cool news. And then the LOL news, the gaming news, on top of just I mean, it brings it to the attention of a lot of gamers, which, is a community that is very open to this sort of technology because they understand the exchanging of digital assets already through skins and mods and all this. So when you tell them, hey, currency is digital now, they're like, I get it. Okay. So it's
I think that story, I mean, I don't really care about League of Legends. I think that story is more important mainly because when I think of hijacking, like cryptojacking software, I think of things that people are downloading that are probably they shouldn't be clicking on, things that would normally give you malware or viruses that people just aren't vetting out. But I mean, League of Legends is a large enough organization, right, where they should have vetted that out, and it's just weird that you have an organization that large that actually let it get through, right? So it's one of those you always should be checking things under computer CPU utilization, things like that. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Does anyone else have news or anything that's been spoken about that they want to get a word in on?
Yeah, I don't know if like marketing is a good topic for today.
I was actually about to say. So the next section is where we would. This is a new thing we're doing in this episode here. Before we get to the main topic, there's going to be a spot where we can talk about anything anyone here wants to talk about. So we go intro, news, and then open floor essentially, and then we get to the topic. And since Anonymous just joined, I gave you a shout out in the intro about what you're doing with the marketing. So actually,
cool.
Talk about it a bit.
Sure. I mean, I actually just came in here specifically to tell you guys. Like, I just got off the phone. It was an hour-long phone call with a guy named Christopher Cadell. He's with Nature Magazine. Basically, he just kind of wanted to know who we are and what we're doing, and like honestly, he loved us. Like, he just loved the idea of what we're trying to accomplish here, and pretty much the nature of the conversation was about discovering what the rates would be for certain marketing initiatives, as far as like, do we want print ads? Do we want email clips or banner ads? But basically, yeah, that's kind of like further down. What I'm trying to do is set up a whole bunch of different options in the marketing channel for what we can do to promote ourselves. So those are kind of the two leading ideas right now, is Science Mag and Nature Mag. They seem to have the best, I guess not best, most relevant user bases to us. So that's something I'm pursuing right now, and it seems to be going pretty well. I'm going to do a little bit of a write-up, update that document I got with these pages of information I got from this guy, seeing like what the prices are and whatnot. And yeah, so join in the marketing channel, please. I need help. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll hop over at some point because this is part of my actual day job. So I'll hop out at some point.
Much appreciated.
You are killing it too. I just got a chance to look through the GDocs that you've put together so far. This anyone who comes in, you're not coming in cold and where everyone needs to explain everything to you. Anonymous is keeping a couple GDocs updated, just with everything he's been finding out and all the conversations we've been having here and elsewhere in the community, and it's just amazing. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, anyone is free to edit that document, contribute, and become a part of the process. So please do.
Awesome. Anyone else want to, or do you have anything else you want to say about marketing?
No, that was pretty much it. Go for it.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say about marketing? Any ideas, inspiration?
It'd be great to have a proof of concept done before we sent a marketing document out.
Yeah, we're actually, we've discussed this a little bit about like getting a, oh, see you later, Jim. We'll miss you, buddy. But we're had a discussion about getting either a sketch or something. I'm working on a scrapbook sort of thing where it's just like you just throw one-liners that you think of up on the doc, or if you have the time, you write full paragraphs. And then when you go to a specific, I can't think of the word, specific outlet, you can pull one-liners that fit with that outlet's audience and put them into a little mock-up. But I think you're right about getting proof of concept, who we want to reach, what we want to tell them, and all that stuff put together. But that's what we need the most help with right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that for any kind of literature we would have, like an ad, like say we progress with Nature Magazine or whatever, I'm assuming any ad we put together would have to be approved via voting, right? Since we are open, since we are like decentralized and such.
I think that raises a very deep issue because yes, like I agree with the principle, but when you get down to it, that means we can't act quickly.
I think there still needs to be voting, but I think voting in Slack, where we invite people to go to Slack, is probably the best way to do it quickly enough. Or, you know, so we can make sure we have some level of just voting, but, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you're sort of right. I think there should be some things that can be put in the client, like general voting, general concepts. Do you agree with this idea for marketing? Or like if we get a group of people, a large group of people, are you okay with having these people run the marketing section? And then for release of funds, which will be another part, because this stuff that Anonymous is doing in particular is fairly expensive, relatively expensive. And there's other stuff that's cheaper or less expensive. But when it comes to moving on this, it might not be best to have to get a 6-week poll out to ask for funds to run an ad. It might be better to have a poll that says, are you okay with giving this large group of people power over a set amount of funds to run the marketing? Kind of what we did with Vortac when we were running Google Ads. Basically, it was Vortac's going to run this. Are we okay with voting Vortac or giving Vortac funds to run it? And that was the poll.
Yeah, I think voting on the budget they're given or the actions they're allowed to take is better than voting on each action.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we should also be careful too, you know, like obviously be careful about how we word the proposal. Like we're not just going to sign a blank check. I mean, especially when it gets into bigger initiatives like magazine advertising and whatnot. Yeah, like those are bigger ticket items. So, I mean, I think it's still possible. Like we can have a 6-week poll. There's no problem with that for an established price, which I'm finding out. You know, get that approval, and we don't have to run it immediately when the poll is done. Like we can just have the approval there and then act on it whenever we find is the most opportune moment for us, kind of thing. Like and as far as the magazines, like you can literally see the agenda of what topics they are going to release for the entire year. So like, yeah, if we did that, if this did go through and we did that, then we could have the approval and then say, okay, well, I want it in the December issue because of blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
If we had a small proof of concept project done, then we could put it out as an announcement and ad at the same time. We've run this pilot project.
Yeah, I think the only worry is if we put out a proof of concept ad, people will be voting yes or no on if they agree with the graphics of the ad as opposed to the concept of like how to spend the money. Which means we'll get in the nitty gritty and we'll have to go through way more back and forth.
Well, if the document is well put together, then we can put it somewhere where people can read it.
We could draw from the way the white paper was put together, sort of for inspiration, how we want to do voting on marketing.
Yeah.
It was put out in a public spot, and the way we phrased the proposal was you're voting on this specifically, but you're also voting in the proposal. There were sections that say, like, you're giving the power to make minor changes to these, I think it was like 6 or 7 people. But any major changes, we're going to come back and re-poll it if it's a conceptual change, a change in principle, essentially. But any like changing the wording or just the design a little bit, you give that power to the people who originally put the proposal together. Right, and we could maybe make that work with marketing at large.
Yeah, that makes sense. As long as we can kind of condense.
Yeah, my only worry is that if if we put out an ad and somebody comes in with a large project that we can't handle because it's just too big for us to basically break it up into individual work units, and we have to say no to them.
I
Or
see what
the
you're saying.
budget's too big.
I think that fear is mitigated based on what we advertise. If we advertise like, bring us all your science work, all your data, we might not be ready for that sort of thing yet. But if we advertise is like, this is us, this is what we're doing, come help us, be part of us, help us build. I think it would reach a lot of university professors, university researchers who would look at what we're doing and then want to help us do that stuff.
You see, the project I did with the medical research team would have been easy to break up into individual work units because basically each patient was its own work unit. But if we get into something that is really heavy, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just agree. But let's continue, let's move on. So if anyone wants to continue this discussion, come to Slack, marketing channel. Everyone is very friendly. We get into some intense conversations, but it's what's needed to get something at this level done. And again, Anonymous, like, awesome work stepping up to get this moving.
Thanks, man. No problem.
Yeah, props to you, Anonymous.
Okay. So does anyone else have something else they want to talk about besides marketing before? If not, then we can just talk about the roadmap a little bit. Okay.
As long as there are not too many forks in the road.
Who's got forks in the road? Are we forking? Not forking.
That's a bad word. Don't say that. No forks.
Okay,
There's
sorry.
only allowed to be spoons and knives.
So for the rest of the episode here, we will be talking about the Gridcoin roadmap overview, which was released 2 months ago. And I stress overview there because this is not a detailed roadmap of development. This was put together by a group of developers and community members who just took all the developments that are being worked on that have been dreamt of that we're pretty sure are going to be implemented at some point or that we would like to, so like a wish list. And we put them all together in a nice, neat document so that people could see what we want to do, what we're doing, and what we need help with. And if I remember correctly, it was this document that actually brought Mad Max into the community, and Mad Max is the one who's doing the UI design right now. And he said, oh, I see you say help wanted on this roadmap, I can help. So it is great to get this sort of document out there and to continue to look back on it and improve it. The link will be in the description below, and I'll put it in the chat right here. Do you guys remember this document, or do y'all want a quick second to review it?
I remember its existence.
Why don't you sum it up?
Okay, I'll go through it real quick. It was broken into 2 sections, a development section and a outreach section. And then those sections were broken up into 3 nested sections called short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So for development, the short-term goals were to stabilize the protocol, which was marked as completed. That was basically steady superblock creation, improve the beacon mechanism, and mitigate the forking and reorganization issues. Also short-term, we have polling definitions and parameters, and that is under development. You can help us build that in the poll definitions channel on Slack. We have the main document put up. We need to turn it into a proposal, and we're also kind of watching to see how AVW, active vote weight, plays out with some more polls before we really push this forward. But definitely help appreciate on that. Also short term is CBR. That's completed, ready for testing, and the poll was underway. It's now completed. It will be implemented. And manual reward claims, which we hope to put out with CBR, but that is in pre-development. And if anyone wants to help with development or architecture building, do reach out. We could use the help. Midterm, we have the code rebase, the neural net renamed and ported to C++. All of these are under development, or those two are under development. And then we have a new superblock creation mechanism that's under pre-development design. That's dynamic witness participation is the leading contender for that one right now. Help wanted. If you want to help work that out, come on into the dev channel and say you want to help. UX UI development improvements, that's ongoing, and we could always use help with that. Mobile development and more multi-sig simplification. Those are both help wanted. We haven't even started that, but if you want to come on and help lead the charge for that stuff. Long-term smart contracts, additional superblocks / abstraction layers for more computations. So that's like making a superblock for something other than BOINC. A potential treasury system and an automated graylist system. Right now we have a manual graylist system that GUK has put together, where if a project meets a certain amount of criteria, it is gray listed, and then it can be re-white listed if it fixes its problems within a set amount of time. So that part is sort of automated, but then the actual removing or the actual gray listing of the project and re-white listing of the project is currently manual. So we want to automate that in the long term. So also on this list that is not in the document is TCD. I think that's a short-term or mid-term development. We just completely forgot to put it in the document. And that's total credit delta. There's a whole episode on that in the back log of Fireside Chats if you want to look at that. And then for outreach, short-term, we had the white paper that's done. Developer documents, that's underway. Jim, I Like Chocolate, and Snippetomic are working on some very in-depth documents. TC Black, who I haven't seen around in a while, has also put some work into the blue paper, but we also want developer documents of every kind, not just the blue paper. That's help wanted and under development. Introduction documents, that's basically keeping the wiki up to speed, and any other intro documents you can think of. Help wanted, come on in, give it a crack. And then tutorials and other visual resources. We're also talking about this in the marketing channel. That's like a promo video or one of those neat little animated things that's like, this is how you set up Gridcoin. And it just walks you through it with cute little colors and everything. Or whatever aesthetic you want to do. If you want to build one, go for it. It doesn't need to be cute. But that is a help wanted. We do have people who've expressed interest. We just, it requires work. A lot of the stuff just takes a lot of work, and since we're all volunteers, it's difficult to get it going. So the more we have helping out, the more teams we can build, the better everything will be and the faster we can go, especially with marketing. And then last short-term section of outreach is marketing documents and resources. This is like building the base assets, the brands, the brand assets, I don't know what to call them, but the stuff that Josh built last year and that Matt Cox helped build this year, and the stuff that Matt is building on even more. So this, we have some people putting work in, but of course, if you think you can help with this, come on in and help out. Midterm directed marketing initiatives, the blue paper specifically, and a new Gridcoin website that is a little more accessible. Right now we have a block of text website. I mean, it's great text, but something, I don't know if you guys remember, gridcoin.science. That was a very visually attractive website. Something like that would not be bad as an official website. That's a help wanted. All of those are help wanted. And then long-term, major marketing initiatives, institutional outreach, and partnership outreach. Yeah, so that's basically the entire document. It will be linked in the description, I already said that. But yeah, what do you guys think? Basically, I was thinking we could talk about this document specifically, or what you guys think priorities should be in terms of development, and just what you think the direction of Gridcoin, where it should go. But I'm not talking anymore because my mouth is very dry.
So quick question for anyone who might know. So Jeringo posted the roadmap overview. Does he update this overview, or does he repost it every time there is an update?
I think I can talk on his behalf. To my knowledge, oh, he's back. Never mind.
Talk on my behalf, though.
No.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a updated version posted or put out anywhere, and this one doesn't look like it's been edited since it was posted.
Yeah, that's basically accurate. We have a GDoc that's shared among a bunch of people, and if something gets changed, we'd update that, and if there's a big change, we'd make a big announcement. But there really hasn't been much talk since this was posted. You guys remember, right? For a while, a lot of people were requesting a roadmap. They're like, "Oh, Gridcoin's dead," because no one knows what the development is going on. There are a lot of people doing different things, and the developers knew what they were doing. And the people who are active in the community knew what they were doing, but average Joe on Reddit was like, what are they doing? So there was a big push to try and get something that at least sort of binds everything together and lets everyone who isn't very active know that stuff is getting done, and that we do have a sort of plan about what order we want to get things done in. So this is the result of that.
Okay, I just wanted to know if that was a current document or not.
It is still current.
Gotcha.
See another number of links within the document. Are they being updated, like the white paper and documentation?
I have not been there in a while. Those are links for anyone who wants to contribute. You can, so the top link goes straight to the Gridcoin research repo, which is the main development repo for code. So if a coder wants to develop, that's where they go. And they either make an issue, solve the issue, make a pull request, whatever the hell they want to do. And for the outreach, it's broken in the, we have the Gridcoin research repo, which I just described. Then we have the Gridcoin community repo, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's more for community members who have ideas that aren't necessarily development oriented. We felt that, my understanding at least, is that the developers felt like it would be easier for them if they had a place where they could talk specifically development, and then if the rest of the community had a place where they could talk other stuff like marketing, white paper, documentation, all that stuff. So if you want to contribute to anything in the outreach section, there's a link to the direct subrepo, I don't know what you call them, for that subject. So under the Gridcoin community repo, there's the Gridcoin marketing section, there's the documentation section, stuff like that. So that is what those are.
Okay.
And I don't know how much work has been going into them. The main Gridcoin community section is called tasks. And that's where a lot of people put their issues and their ideas and whatnot. So if you're listening to this and you want to see what the community is thinking about building, go to the Gridcoin community repo and go to the tasks section, TASKS. And you'll see all the issues and conversations going on. That gets regular posts because we are a fairly active community. Oh, that was actually, that was common. Was that a faraway train, or is that your old?
Yes, that's a very far away train.
Thought it might be the headset.
I'm a little upset right now.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah. This guy's really loving his job, I'll say that much.
Just leave it in, guys. We're going to take a 3-minute break to listen to the train.
It's not even close. This guy's loving his job.
Oh my god. Well, there goes my hearing.
For anyone who wants to know, I sleep very well at night. I have no issues with where I live whatsoever.
That just made my night, dude.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad no one was talking, so I didn't feel bad about leaving that on. And, pardon, it goes until 4 a.m., I'll have you know.
Oh, wow.
And then starts back up at 6.
Those 2 hours of silence must be terrible.
I know. I don't know how to sleep. I actually just have an alarm that plays it. Honestly, if my alarm was a train horn, and we'll get right back on track. But if my alarm was a train horn, I honestly don't think I'd wake up to it because I'm so used to the noise. I sleep straight through it. I don't think I would wake up.
I believe you.
Anyway,
That's gotta be
Anyway.
brutal.
it's not bad. But okay. So where were we?
We could talk about the document specifically, or any concerns or questions people have about priorities and development direction of Gridcoin. That maybe that conversation will lead to an update to this document. For example, I know a big one is a lot of people want CBR and MRC to come out at the same time or very close to each other. Is that still something that people think should happen? Stuff like that.
Do we have an update on CBR? I don't. I think the last update I heard was like over 2 months ago.
Oh, Barton, do you want to explain the development Muppets?
He's going to use Muppets to explain.
Do you really want me to go in depth on the Muppets? Is that really on topic?
Maybe not in depth, but use it to explain where we are with CBR.
Okay. So to to just kind of go over it lightly, we put our development releases into milestones, and we have our milestones named alphabetically, descending alphabetic order from A to Z, and we just kind of randomly name them after Muppets.
I remember the story now.
Yeah. So A is Annie Sue. Annie Sue is our next targeted release, and it actually the staging release candidate was built late last night, early today, and has been undergoing extensive testing on testnet, and should be ready for mainnet soon. CBR, as it stands, CBR and block version 10, which encompasses everything that is CBR, is targeted B, Betsy Bird. I
love Betsy Bird.
I didn't come up with
on.
the names. It is what it is. So when Annie Sue, our next version, is released, Betsy Bird will hit full testing. So CBR as it stands right now is the code's 90% there. The testing just can't really begin wholesale until we've got the last release out the door. So once we finish up our final testing on the release candidate for A, Annie Sue, we will begin testing CBR, which is Betsy Bird.
Gotcha. When will it get released to testnet?
I'm gonna say whenever the current candidate is done. How's that? I don't like putting days on it,
No, that's fine. I mean, whenever I ask for days, I expect like big ranges, like within the month or within the next few months. But no, really, I was just wondering because it's for the people who are on testnet, whether or not that means it's the blockchain related, so there shouldn't be an update, right? So I'm just wondering whether or not I should be paying attention to make sure my client's not crashing or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's always a good thing to be paying attention to what's going on in testnet because it does change very rapidly compared to production. But I would say a week is probably a fair estimate for when CBR hits. But don't put, a ton of faith in that.
Can we maybe say 5 days?
Can it be 5 days?
I was avoiding saying 5 days, but
Well, a real work week is 5 days, so you kind of said it.
Barton, you did just checkmark yourself on the bingo card there. You're up to 4 tonight?
I thought it was up to 5.
I'm not counting it.
You gotta go. Fine.
Like a week. That way you can make the announcement in Fireside.
Exactly. Next week, I expect a report.
I'll delay it just till Thursday for you guys.
There you go.
Wow, psych, we're
Thank
moving
you.
to Friday. We're not moving to Friday, guys. Sorry, bad joke. Okay, that's useful information. So CBR is moving to testnet shortly, and then how long do you think we'll be on testnet? What is there even? Are we thinking that far ahead, or is it just let's see what happens when this gets out there?
Well, Okay, so with CBR, it's obviously a massive change. A protocol change is something that you really want to be sure you've tested, over and over again, and because any kind of problem in there is going to be really really bad on production. So it's definitely going to be an extended testing period, a month minimum. Whether it's 1 month, 2 months, I can't really say. For the people who want manual rewards claim in as well, that's going to add more time. So it's really from where we stand right now, it's hard to put a number on it, but I would say at absolute minimum a month.
Okay, and I also think that, and I think it will probably take more than that by quite a bit. I would say 6 months would be awesome, but that's a conservative dream. So it could be sooner, but yeah, because especially doing MRC, because if I understand correctly, MRC we still need to get it out of design, out of architecture, because CBR simple protocol change, but a protocol change. MRC complicated complicated code-wise, simple in concept.
Yeah, that's
code
pretty
MRC.
much exactly right. Yeah, you're looking at something that CBR is, the code's there, the testing needs to be done, and yeah, as you were saying, the manual rewards claim, it's a bit easier to test. I mean, it's still a lot of testing, but it's definitely not as much as a full protocol change. But the code needs to be there, and there are various solutions that have been designed and are in development, but we don't have one that's ironed out and ready to go yet.
Cool. So those are listed on as short-term developments on the roadmap overview, and it seems like that's what's happening, which is pretty awesome. And then Diogo Gomez, sorry if I butchered your name again, has two suggestions here in chat. Are what you quoted the changes to the document? Okay, so you're saying where it says UX UI improvements, make it specifically voting, polling, visualization improvements. Oh, you want to move that section to short term. I see what you're saying. All right, and then your other suggestion is to change institutional outreach or partnership outreach to midterm. Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think these are things? I mean, we're already working on the UI, but that's kind of a continuous project. Improving that sort of stuff. The UX is complicated. The UX goes from person learns about Gridcoin to person has Gridcoin working smoothly and optimized. So there's a lot to improve on in that huge realm. And the Gridcoin wallet design itself is one section right in the middle. But having smooth tutorials, intro tutorial videos, and then having documents that show you how to optimize for each piece of hardware, those are pretty complicated. So I don't know if we can do that short term.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. Like the voting, polling, visualization, the UI and UX, it's very much hand in hand, and it is a continuous process. As we've shown, we make incremental UI changes that are better, and like the poll that's currently out, it's a continuous process.
Yeah, one of the big parts that I love about the UI GUI that Max is putting together is the new way to visualize polls. There's a section on the main page that shows polls. I think there's ways to sort polls by those you've already voted in, new polls, and some other options. If you think of anything, put it on the GitHub thread. So that specific improvement is something that will be a short-term change, assuming this poll passes. For institutional outreach and partnership outreach, that would be awesome if we could get that midterm. That specifically requires a lot of work and a lot of resume building, a lot of foundational building. You need a strong something to stand on before you can go out to anything.
If we're going to do outreach for partnerships and the rest of it, we better have some very, very good documentation put together before that goes out.
Yeah, I agree.
because that's going to be scrutinized.
Yep. We would need, that would be part of the foundational development. We would need documents, detailed tech documents, probably the second version of the white paper. We would need people who can be contacted 24/7 in any time zone. We just like stuff we don't really have right now that could get built very quickly. But again, we are volunteers. It could get built quickly if we had $100 million. We don't have $100 million.
I'll do it for 100 million.
Yeah, right. Let's go.
Do we have 50 million?
You and me, Jingo. Let's do it.
Not yet.
All right. If Gridcoin goes up to what, $1, we have 30 million.
I wonder how many. What does the math work out for how many GRC there is then?
Well, that's the foundation has 30 to 40 million GRC.
Yeah, that was a joke. Okay. Thanks for doing that complicated division. But anyway, okay. So no, that's good information. So it's honestly in a weird way. Well, not even a weird way. This is how math works in economics. The more economical we are with the spending, and the more people we get on board, and the more we're able to drive GRC up in terms of profitability and its tradable value, the farther the funds will go, right? So there is an incentive for people who are currently in the platform to help kind of increase that cost and increase the value of GRC, because it means that there will be a constant, the funds will last significantly longer. So
yeah, absolutely, that would help a lot. Luckily, we are an amazing community of people who will work for free. Devs were working before they were getting paid. That doesn't mean they shouldn't get paid. They should get paid at least what they're getting paid now. That said, if you want to do an institutional and partnership outreach, they don't necessarily look at the price. They look at the value, and the value is what you have built. It's the product you've got and the community you've got, and what you can bring to them. As much as they might agree with your ethos and what you're trying to do, what they care about is what you have done. So that is doing things that will help market price go up. Great. Doing things that don't necessarily help market price, but help us build a solid foundation to bring to people who will help us build even more, which in turn brings stable price increase. I think that is the direction we want to go in terms of outreach and marketing. For example, technical documentation. That stuff doesn't increase the price by any means. If anything, it lowers it. But it builds, it adds the foundation, which in turn helps us do things that benefit everyone, benefit the entire network.
Having a sound technical and theological document helps bring people in, and people are assets, and their intelligence itself is a marketable thing.
Agreed.
On that note, in the roadmap that Django posted earlier, there was a mention of providing, documenting the current code base for new developers. So if a new developer wants to join, they can, they can just read what's already been done, and then they can kind of have a smooth transition. We might also want to create an actual structure for new developers to join the community. So right now, for example, developers are getting paid $60 an hour, but a lot of them were doing work for nothing, for a while back, and then they were only getting paid $30, and now they're getting paid $60. And so it raises the question: should new people who want to join the dev team for coding purposes, should they get paid the same amount as people who've been here for a very long time? So one thing to add might be, creation of some sort of, transition or, transitionary pay scale, for example, so that we can bring new devs in.
What we did with our company is we gave our developers a basically a bonus as a piece of the company, which kept them interested and excited about what we were developing. Because when we were doing the low Earth orbit satellite with Orbcom, all of our developers got a piece of the company, and that helped to keep their interest up. They felt it helped to keep them a part of it, and they weren't just making a buck off of it. They were actually building a career.
I think that's a good way to do it, especially as crypto continues to develop, because that essentially is, it used to be called pre-mining. That's what pre-mining was, where the developers would mine some of the chain before opening it to the rest of the world, and they would use those funds and pass them out to new developers that came. And that's what ICOs are now. That's what IPOs are. That's how stock options work. I think that's a great idea in terms of payment.
It's an incentive for them.
Yeah, Beachman, you do cut out every once in a while, so make sure you're holding down your mic for a minute before you start talking, because it's only at the beginning.
Man.
A full minute.
A full minute.
Full 60 seconds.
Yeah, here we go. Okay. 9.
Barton, can I say that on air?
Yeah, I can just say it.
Okay.
So one thing that was, it's funny that you mentioned it, Chocolate. We were in the development community talking about this recently. Having possible tiered pay for developers, because it was something that had been brought up, and I had definitely felt that it definitely isn't fair when you're doing like regression testing or quality assurance stuff, finding bugs, to be paid as much as the same people who are doing the actual work and fixing the bugs, right? It just doesn't feel right. So personally, I had said that for a lot of my regression testing, I would take half pay. So I cut the time in half essentially on my invoices.
Get this guy out of here.
And it gained some traction as like, well, we should make this like a policy. So you mentioned it just now, but that in the very soon future might actually be a policy that will exist for developers, having tier 1 developer, tier 2 developer, and like different pay scales essentially.
So is that going to be the subject of a poll? How is that going to work?
It would probably be just an internal discussion among the development team, possibly the admin team as well. If the community feels like they need to voice it, I mean, if that is something that people would care about, it could be a poll. But I mean, I feel like the average community member might not care as much. Maybe like, hey, we're gonna pay some developers half as much, to vote on that. I don't know. I guess it's up to the community.
The only thing that would require a poll, or people would get angry if there wasn't a poll about, is if you increase the pay for anyone.
Yeah, it's not an increase. It's more of a decrease for people who are the lower tier, essentially.
Okay, yeah, because I was just wondering, like, what pay changes have to go through the poll, because for the $60 an hour, obviously we had to have a poll, and for the original 30 an hour, we had to have a poll. So I was just wondering. And thank you for the explanation.
Awesome. And it's sort of in the same vein. And we talked about this a little bit last week regarding how to pay for open source development. And we talked a lot about bounties. And actually, I think Snip just posted a comment about this on the UI update thread. But it's the idea of getting a sort of bounty hub, or some way to get bounties out to the public easily, whether it's a website, whether it's in the wallet itself. Getting something like that built would also help attract new developers. Be like, hey, yeah, get in here. We got this. We got some easy stuff you can work on if you just want to do some easy stuff. We got some hard stuff if you want to do like full protocol work. But there's bounties attached to them. I think that would also be very useful. And I think that maybe should go on the roadmap. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a bounty for it made soon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. You just mentioned me when I just drove in. Sorry, it wasn't at my computer.
Just drove right into my wall.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think
Lovely.
bounties would be really nice for a lot of the documentation you guys were mentioning before. Writing up the second version of the white paper, writing up the blue paper, which Jim has done a very large chunk of, and Chocolate and I are working hard to clean up so that it's ready for public. They're ready to show the public. So that's coming along very nicely. But those things, the documentation like that, it's difficult to, reward that in, developer hours, right? If those that are authors on such a document split a pot of whatever the community thinks is worth putting these documents together, that would be perhaps a nicer, more convenient way to pay for it, and encourage the development of these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's a great way for bug hunting, bug development, documentation, and small marketing projects like design or whatnot. I think all that stuff is great.
Yeah, there could be a pot then as well for, Barton can then disseminate, send 100 GRC to whoever finds a bug in this version of the wallet, right?
Yeah, I want to
Find a
clarify.
bug.
I said bug development. I didn't mean bug development.
I mean, that's how development works, right? I mean,
You're the person who crashed the faucet. I knew it.
Vespertation says something here. Has there been a discussion of marketing research computation power for researchers? Like researchers could talk to us, then we create a new BOINC project in compliance with our whitelist process. Well, we've talked about this a couple times. It's called microgrid, which is the concept, and we have had a full episode on it. We talked a little bit about it on the Getting Gridcoin in front of the STEM community episode, and we are continuing to develop it. We're picking up the pace a little bit. So hopefully we'll be able to have an episode on an actual piece of documentation for microgrid and how it would work in a couple weeks. I would say probably end of July, or because it's me, I'll say December.
Because it's me, I'll say 5 days.
But
yeah, so I don't know if you're opening it up to anyone or if we're gonna have it on a Slack channel, but if there's people who would like to contribute and maybe make it go a little faster, you're more than welcome to kind of come over.
The development process is going to be a small group will get together a basic document, and then we'll open it up to its own Slack channel at some point, and then the larger community can come in. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to not have 200 people trying to edit the same GDoc at the same time.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. Very difficult. But that is a great idea, Vespertatia. And hopefully we can get something built with it. Long term, it'll take a lot of work and a lot of help. So we'll see what comes of it, but we're starting. And Barton, you should have 5 check marks because you said 5 days, essentially. So
I did not. You forced me
maple
to.
syrup.
It doesn't count if you try.
That's fair. All right. Well, we're wrapping. We're well past an hour. So, does anyone else have any thoughts about the roadmap, development progress, development direction, or anything in general that they want to bring up? We can go for like another 5-10 minutes if someone does. Cool.
Did you mention when the UI update will be released? Assuming the vote goes through.
Yep, the poll goes till August 1st, and then it's a matter of what the developers prioritize, because it's implementation. A lot of it is implementation work. It could be very difficult, could be very easy, and it could also just be not important at the time. Let's say we're like they're in the final stretch of getting MRC made or CBR out. They're going to do that instead of implement the UI. I missed that, Diogo. I'm going to scroll. But Snip, quick answer to your question is there is no timeline for implementation, only for design.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yep. All right, Diogo says idea for the marketing people, approach do-it-yourself/maker communities and make some kind of contest of Boink Gridcoin projects that have a second utility. Example, a heater/Boinker machine. We've talked about this actually. It's Chocolate's idea.
Yep, that happened.
I think that's a good idea. Chocolate, do you want to talk about it at all? Anything
What about the GPU? Just the heating with an energy comparison thing?
Yeah, what was your idea about building a Boink or a rig that turns into like a heater or something?
Yeah, so basically, there's a lot of people who crunch during the winter and they use the heat from their GPUs to heat their homes. And so what I suggested was doing an analysis, one in terms of energy consumption and two in terms of money consumption. What is the difference between heating your homes with GPUs versus heating your homes with like a typical home boiler? The main benefit being that if you well, obviously for one, if you're crunching, then you're contributing to science. But Snip distracted me with this silly comment. So the idea being that if you have a computer and you're basically running it, 24/7, that computer runs off of electricity, which can come from green energy, as opposed to a typical home boiler, which basically is most home boilers run off of oil. And so there's just the direct comparison in terms of, let's say, carbon emissions between using a home boiler and using electricity for your GPU. And then there is the secondary consideration of, home boilers can still only run on fossil fuels, whereas we can actually get electricity for our GPUs from renewable sources. So, the analysis isn't extraordinarily complicated, but we do have to be a bit careful. Like how a GPU, let's say, takes in 250 watts of energy. Is it releasing 250 watts of energy? Or not watts. I'm sorry, God. 250 watts of power. Is it releasing 250 watts of power? So it might not. It might only be releasing 200 watts of power or whatever. So that's a bit of a complication. Also, home boilers, those are a bit complicated as well. Like I have a radiator in my room, but how much heat is coming off of that? That's really hard to measure. So there are some. It's hard to normalize to these things. It's a bit complicated, but just generally, the idea would be to do a carbon emissions and financial analysis of heating your homes with GPUs versus heating it with carbon emissions. With a home boiler.
Please do not fill your house with carbon emissions.
So the idea then is we could take that sort of concept and write it up into a challenge and present it to communities, because DIY and maker communities, this is something that they would love to do, I think, and get a lot of people who tinker involved with this and see what they come up with. And that's a great way to market, I think. Very directed marketing at a group of people who would be interested in what Gridcoin is and what we do. So I posted it in the marketing channel. I copy and pasted the idea, Diogo, into a marketing channel on Slack. So it is recorded. We'll put it on the GDoc when we get a moment. All right, then we'll wrap it up with that. We are well over time here because we were talking about some great stuff. Yeah, all I got is the poll ends August 1st for the UI design. We do need to reach 15% total weight participation. So if you haven't voted, get out there, vote. Yes, no, maybe, no, reject, whatever you want. But get out there and vote. Let's show the rest of the community that we're pretty active. We will be back here next week, and I think I'm gonna go opt it. We haven't talked about it, Chocolate or Goblin or myself, but I think we're gonna do side staking in depth next week because we're getting on some topics that are pretty relevant to how side staking would actually work, and I think it will be pretty helpful. And it's not that difficult to implement if we don't do it with a code system. So next week will be side staking, and that will be Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, midnight UTC, as always, right here on the Gridcoin Discord server. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Chocolate and Goblin, for helping host here. Thank you, Craig, for recording. And thank you for everyone who talked. Just so you know, Craig is a robot, but be nice to the AI because you never know what's going to happen.
But he's a bear at heart, so.
Have a good weekend, everyone.